What's up, everyone, man? Welcome back to Offbeat Podcast. Happy 2023. We're so excited to be able to be here with you guys. Right here with my co-host.
Hey, I'm Aaron Ortega. How's everybody doing?
Man, I'm doing great. And we have a special guest. And Aaron, why don't you introduce our special guest today?
Yes. Okay. I'm really excited because today I'm introducing a good friend of mine who I've known for a while, and her name is Cynthia Mesa. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, thank you for having me. First of all,
Yeah.
like Aaron said, my name is Cynthia Mesa. I'm the firstborn daughter of immigrant teenage parents.
All
Let's
right.
go.
Yeah, I live in East Highland. Married to my high school sweetheart, and I have 3 kids.
How long you guys been married?
Oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me for this. 12 years.
12 years. Let's
Okay,
go.
so you guys been married for 12, and
Yeah.
then
And you married us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right.
Oh, that's
right.
tight. So you married
The
them.
story does sound familiar.
Uh,
Now, okay, so but you guys known each other for a long time.
Oh yeah, we started dating when my baby sister was 1, and she's 21 now.
wow.
Yeah. So we
Yeah, that's
dated all
quite a-
through high school, college, and got married after college.
Wow,
Wow.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's good. Okay, so and now you're into like entrepreneurial, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about with
Yeah.
you, and we're excited about having
Yeah.
you here because you're actually our first female guest.
Hopefully
What-
not the
what?
last one, you guys.
No.
Not be the last one. But yeah, like tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial, and I mean, you actually come from a family of
I
entrepreneurs,
do.
right?
I do,
You
yeah.
want to tell us about what your family's?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So, like I said, immigrant parents. My dad's from Honduras. My mom's from Mexico, and they actually met each other at my mom's. So her grandma did something in the fashion industry. So they dealt with fabrics,
Okay.
and my dad came from Honduras and started working there and met my mom there.
Oh,
So, the owner's granddaughter. My dad comes from a long lineage of entrepreneurs. His family's actually very wealthy, and he's the youngest son and was shipped off to America because he got in trouble.
oh,
Yeah.
so
Got-
America was his punishment.
Yes. Well,
awesome.
it was an actual punishment because he went from being like a boss and telling people what to do and just, like people knew who he was and his name to having to come here and work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was his punishment.
Oh, that was interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
That's
like,
that's a cool story because usually you hear about, the other side of immigrants when they come here to the United States. It's usually because they are coming to seek a better life.
Mm-hmm.
But in the situation of your dad, he was actually he had a good life in
Yeah, he
Honduras.
did. Mhm.
And then he was actually brought over here as like, okay, you're not getting it together over here. All
Yeah.
right, go see how it is in America.
Yeah, just like teenager, out of control, money, power, girls, right? So they
Man.
send him to LA where his brother was living. And when he left his home, it was like, you're out of my home, you're on your own, like you're a man.
wow.
So he had to work and like do things that he never thought he'd have to do.
Wow. And so
Yeah.
then they met, they hook up, they got married.
Yeah, my mom got pregnant. My dad was 18, my mom was 16.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they got married, and I'm the oldest of 8.
oh.
So
they
you're the
just kept on
firstborn.
having babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. it just
Good.
kept on
Now,
having them.
okay. So now, does your siblings do they do entrepreneurials as well?
They do. We all 8 of us are. So growing up, and I think I was just telling you about this. Growing up, I grew up in East LA, and my parents were very adamant about us not knowing anything about like the gang culture.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna ask. East LA. As
East
soon as
LA
you
is
told me East
hardcore.
LA,
Oh, no.
man, it took me to American Me.
Oh,
It took me
no.
to Blood In, Blood Out.
We
Because
lived
East
in-
LA, East
yeah.
Los.
East
East
Los,
Los,
yeah.
that's
We
not-
lived in a bubble. Like we weren't even allowed to wear certain brands.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
I remember we moved out of LA and came to the IE freshman year in high school. So I remember coming to the IE, and people were asking, "Where are you from?" First week here, I got jumped.
Oh,
my
yeah.
gosh, you got jumped.
I did.
What years was this?
2002, I want to say.
Okay,
So I graduated
yeah.
2005.
That was big rivalry back then.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
LA
little past my
folks,
time, but-
IE.
Okay,
I
let's
knew-
talk about you getting jumped. How did that work?
I knew
Yeah.
nothing about this. Like again, in a bubble. Like we were allowed to wear like all like Roxy, O'Neill, just like very like surf white brands.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause my parents wanted nothing to do with like the East LA
Yeah.
like gang culture.
Ben Davis, Dickies,
None of
Converse.
Yeah. So I come to the IE and people are like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm from LA." Just like a very innocent conversation, not knowing that where are you from meant like what gang or
Yeah,
what
like who do you
affiliation,
kick it
right?
with?
Yeah.
And-
So I started school on a Tuesday. On next Monday, I get jumped.
And it traveled, word traveled quick.
Yeah, like this
yeah.
girl's representing LA. I'm like, what? And
Ah.
and again, so naive. I remember someone in class being like, "Where are you from?" Like they're saying you're from LA. I'm like, I am from LA. Like I just moved here from LA. Just completely oblivious.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you got jumped, can I just ask just a few questions about that? But when you got jumped, like what was going through your head when they were?
Okay. This is where it
Yeah,
takes,
walk
like,
us
a
through,
whole
walk us
spin.
through.
I get jumped. I grew up in a home where my dad was like, "You will never start anything.
Okay.
You will never be the cause of a fight. You will never, I'm never going to hear a teacher say, like, she started,
Yeah.
but you are going to finish it. And if you don't, you're going to get it when you come home."
Okay. Oh.
So they jumped me and I beat up this girl.
Oh.
Like
so,
Okay, so
I
you got-
defended myself.
okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
defended
Oh,
myself.
so- all right,
I
so you
fought
held
back.
your
Yeah,
ground.
I fought
you
back.
defended
Let's
your
go.
land.
Yeah, I defended myself.
That's what's
I was
up.
like, "Oh
Heck
no,
yeah.
no, no, you're not gonna hit me." You know?
Oh, okay.
So-
and then from there on, did you get like your respect or
Absolutely. Which I didn't understand. They're like, "Oh, she beat up this girl."
so and so and who?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, like I wasn't trying to fight. I was just defending
New
myself.
champion on the
Yeah.
block.
Yeah.
And then she got
From East Los.
right. She got kicked out of school, and I was all through high school, all through middle school, I was a straight A student. So I got no punishment. Looking back on it, I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's kind of unfair, but whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
So that
crazy.
just like
Well, and then
set me
plus you
up.
didn't start it.
Yeah, I didn't.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
I was walking home.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
And that's
So-
usually how it would go. Like I remember growing up too. Like it was usually the one who started it. Was usually the one
Yeah.
with the greater
Yeah, exactly.
punishment. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that just set off like my whole high school career.
I was like, welcome to the IE.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
high
from
school
LA.
career. That is
Which
an
was
actual thing.
A complete culture shock.
Yeah.
My middle school in LA was predominantly Hispanics and like a few like white kids.
Okay.
I think there was like one black kid.
Okay.
Then I start going to Rialto High School, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like the majority were black kids.
Yeah, black.
Oh yeah, Rialto High. Yeah.
I just
right-
remember just fully being like in shock. Like,
Okay. Where am I
going-
at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Wow,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then what was it like for you and for you being the oldest and like raising, like, what was it like to have siblings growing up? Like,
So I come again, just very high expectations.
okay.
B's were not good enough. Like A minus. Like my parents were questioning why did you have an A minus?
Yeah.
So like the expectation was like you're going to be the best and the best only, and if it's not the best, I don't even want to see it.
Ooh.
So like the overachiever in me, high, like all time
Yeah.
high.
And I can kind of see that because of your dad coming from that,
Yeah.
high class in Honduras.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were educated. I'm sure, coming
Actually,
from a
no.
family.
My dad doesn't come from an
Oh,
educated
okay.
family.
So just entrepreneur.
Just all of his family, just like dairy, cattle, just a lot of land.
Okay.
owners, yeah.
Okay. So they were wealthy in that sense. In that. Okay.
And my mom comes from Guadalajara, and they moved from Mexico to the U.S. They had like visas. She would come and travel to America and go to Disneyland on vacation. Her dad was an
Okay.
engineer.
Oh, wow.
When the economy collapsed in Mexico, he became an alcoholic, and then they moved here.
Wow.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So because that's what I was gonna ask when I was asking about your dad, and then so he had his expectations, but your mom, she also came from
Yeah.
an educated
Yeah.
background,
Mhm.
so that's where.
Oh yeah. So just very high expectations. Perfect student. I would come home and I was the second mom.
Okay.
Cook, clean, take care of kids. Just that
Yeah.
that was all of my childhood.
So
So
you
what-
had. I'm sorry.
No, go
so
ahead,
you
man.
so you had both sides of the expectation because that's very typical in Hispanic families. Is either you get one side, and that's why I love hearing this side of the story because typically when you see an immigrant family, migrate here to the United States, their only goal is look, just do better than me.
yeah.
But when you get in your situation, you got both sides where it's like, no, we've accomplished much in our country. we've seen the
Wow.
upside in our own country. We're gonna move to this country, but we expect both from you, the education, but also that side where like you're the biggest sister, you're gonna
Yeah, the
also be like the
typical.
second
Yeah.
mom.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I have like a theory about like generational immigrants,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of times a little bit what he said about oftentimes there's like a first generation is survival, and that's
Mhm.
the typical mindset. We landed here, we stick together, we stick to those who are in the same pace as us,
Yeah.
survival pace.
Yeah.
So you normally get that to first and second generation, and then kind of like a little bit, but then second and third start to get education, and we're like hoping from they want to move their family from surviving to thriving.
Driving. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I also believe that third and fourth generation and up is more a family of opportunity.
And my family dynamic is different in that my parents were able to accomplish that from kid 1 up to kid 8.
Wow.
So like my childhood, the way I grew up is vastly different from that of like my younger siblings.
Okay.
Yeah.
My parents, again, they got married really young. My mom experienced utmost poverty here in the US.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
she got to live a really wealthy private school life in Mexico, moves to the US, and they're living like in a garage.
Yeah.
But it's not even a garage, like a shed.
Wow.
Yeah, just like very poor. My mom gets pregnant with her third kid. I think at that time she was probably like 19 and her mom passes away. So
Oh,
my
wow.
grandma was my age when she passed away. She's
Oh,
34 years old.
wow.
And was she
Oh, so
was she
young.
here or was she in Mexico?
No, she was here. They had all moved here. She had just given birth to a baby, and a blood clot made its way to her lungs, and she passed away.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so like
And
really interesting.
yeah.
so you were young when that happened.
Oh
too.
yeah, I was
You
a
were-
baby.
Yeah.
My mom was 19.
19
Yeah.
years
So-
old, having a third kid.
Third
crazy.
kid, and she's the oldest too. So now her mom passes away, and she's having to raise her kids and help her dad raise 7 kids.
Wow.
Wow.
But yeah, you know what? And that's one thing. Shout out to new school moms, but
Ah.
old school moms.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
old school mamas. Like we talk a lot. There's a lot in the culture, real famous. Like like la luchona vibes.
Mhm.
Like man, some of our moms, man, they were tough.
Oh yeah, my mom is my idol. Like
Yeah.
it's God, and then it's my mother.
No, that's awesome.
Get Jenny Rivera, huh?
Oh,
Like
no,
it's-
no, my
what's your
mom.
mom's name?
Veronica.
Shout out to
Yeah,
Veronica.
Yeah,
Veronica.
she's my confidant, my best friend. Like I was just telling him, like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm totally a mommy's girl. Yeah.
Okay, so then now, okay, so it sounds like your parents. I want us to be honest. It sounds like that's a lot of pressure for
Oh yeah,
a kid.
absolutely.
So there's pressure. You have middle school, you have high school, and high school alone already has drama itself.
Yeah.
What was your adversaries in growing up in that? And like you have pressure coming for your intellect,
Yeah.
your education, right? Then you have like you're still changing and you're going through physical changes. You're going
Yeah.
through, social changes and all these developments that's happening. What was that like for you?
When I describe who I was in high school, I didn't care. Like I had one goal in mind, and that was when I graduate high school, I'm moving back to LA. Like I don't want to live in this like Budong city where it's like 100 degrees every day. Like I'm getting out of here,
Yeah.
So I never went to parties. Like parties were not, I wasn't interested in parties. I wasn't interested in any of that. Like I wanted to get out of high school and that was it. I never understood like the whole party scene. Like kids were like, "Oh, come kick it at my house." I'm like, "Why? Like I
Why?
got my own house. I can go kick it at my house where we can blast the AC as long as we want,
Yeah.
So it was just nothing. It was not something I was interested in. And I think also seeing how hard my parents worked,
Yeah.
I always had that over me. Like I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, I grew up constantly hearing like, what you do, your siblings will follow. So just constantly like, no, like I've got to like set the example.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So it sounds like you, and that's cool because it sounds like you were and you grew up with a certain confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You had a confidence in you, and it sounds like that what really was attributed to your parents.
Oh, absolutely.
And so would they speak that into you?
Oh yeah, from a young age, like you can do whatever you want. Like just there's no limit to what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
And then they were both entrepreneurs. So our whole lives, my parents have been entrepreneurs. Like I think when 9/11 happened, my dad got a job at like a warehouse,
Okay.
and it was brief. Like
Yeah.
my dad is not a good employee.
Oh.
And most entrepreneurs
Are
aren't.
not.
We're
Yeah.
not. No,
Yeah.
it's
and-
like because you can't. You put these people in a bubble, and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely
I don't like it.
100%. No, it's so true.
And then this is going to sound
true.
awful, but you give a Latino power and they treat the people below them,
Yeah.
especially like
Yeah.
in that warehouse. And this is not to say that everyone does that, but that was just the experience for them every time they attempted to get a job,
Yeah.
So they were entrepreneurs their whole lives. And their thing was, we have so many kids, minimum wage cannot afford to give you guys a decent life.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's what I grew up with. So growing up, my parents were always with us.
And
Okay.
what kind of endeavors did you see your parents start as
so
entrepreneurs?
My dad has always sold cars, always.
Okay.
Like in LA, we moved to the IE. He's selling cars. He would sell them in the street, so he would flip cars.
Okay.
He didn't open up his dealerships till I think it was my freshman year in college.
Okay, so this is Massa's Autos. Okay.
Yeah, but his whole life he supported us selling cars.
Flipping them. Yeah.
And then my mom and my dad together did an MLM, and again, very driven, just very charismatic people. They did very well for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
They actually used that money to fund the dealerships.
Okay.
And then
Nice.
in between that, because just being entrepreneurs yourselves, you have high seasons, you have low seasons.
Yeah.
And in between that, we did everything. I remember going to like laundry places with my mom and like selling T-shirts,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
selling food, going to like the swap meet and like getting stuff and flipping it.
Man, dude, your parents were hustlers,
and this
bro.
was like before I was
That's
even
tight.
12. Oh yeah, they hustled their
Yeah.
whole life, which is why we're all hustlers.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
and that's
love
kind of like
hearing
a
stories
common
like
thing. Like
that.
today, new school flip is like getting products and then selling it on Amazon.
Yeah.
But like Latinos were doing that at swap meets
Oh,
for a long
heck
time.
Yeah,
Heck
yeah.
yeah.
Swami was a spot.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And I grew up in downtown LA, so we'd go to downtown LA and just like deliver product. Like, oh, so and so bought this, and my
Yeah.
mom's just like delivering product in like warehouses.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tight, man.
That's amazing. Man.
That's
Yeah, like
tight.
I had my first like business, and I remember this so well because I think it was the first time where I felt seen by a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It was fourth grade, Mrs. Negrete. Shout out to her if she's still alive. And I remember I would go to LA, and at that time, these like little sugar like lollipops that were shaped into like butterflies or unicorns were all the rave with like the fourth graders. And I remember I would tell my mom, take me to LA to go buy some, and I would go and buy like these like big containers of them. And you could buy them at the store for 25 cents, but I would sell them to my classmates for 75 cents.
Woo.
And then
Look at this.
and I remember kids being like, they're 25 cents at the store. I'm like, well, then go to the store.
Yeah.
If you want it right now, it's 75 cents. And
Supply and demand.
and this teacher saw this, and then she made a space. So every day before recess, she would set apart like 10 minutes. All right, you guys, you have 10 minutes to like do your business. And we would like, hey, like some girls like selling erasers, like, or we would like trade.
Man.
And then that was like the
Dang.
first
We need
time.
more teachers like that.
Yeah.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
I would. Yeah, that sounds like so that was your first taste of like entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You were like trading and selling. and-
Yeah,
Because
selling.
you were seeing your parents do it, but it was just kind of like, okay, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But then when you were able to be given an opportunity like that, which is,
Yeah, because technically it was illegal, right? Like you're not allowed to sell things in
Right.
class, in school. So her thing was like, well, I don't want you to do it during recess because you can get in trouble. So I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes before recess and
Yeah.
you can do this. And if you don't want to be here, you can go to recess.
Yeah.
So like all the little entrepreneurs would stay
Oh my
and like
gosh.
do this.
yeah,
That's
that's
so
dope,
cool.
man.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
did a version of that all through high school and all through college.
Well, it's just interesting because I find the reason why I find all this interesting is because I think there has been so much. You're an immigrant. You have these siblings behind you.
Yeah.
You're watching your parents hustle, and they're not like they're not like settling where they're at.
Oh no,
They're
no.
looking to thrive.
And
This
even
is
now, like with the success that they have, they're
they're still
constantly like,
keep they're and they're
what's
still
next?
moving.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
then let
Yeah.
me ask you this then. What are you well, like you and your husband, right?
Hmm.
You guys work together?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so what's your guys' businesses? Yeah,
Businesses.
businesses. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
let's
So
name all those.
my husband's name is Johnny. Both Johnny and I both went to Cal Poly, so we're
Okay.
Cal Poly alumni. He graduated in architecture. I majored in hospitality with an emphasis in culinary arts and a second major in entrepreneurship. We graduate in 2010. We get jobs. During this time, the economy was trash. I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
recall that.
2000.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that bailout and
2010.
all that.
So
Yeah.
if you had a job offer after college, it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
So we get jobs, we get married, we move to Orange County. We work in our fields for a bit, and then we soon realize, like, wait, this is, especially me, it's like, wait, this is not what I signed up for. Like, this
Yeah.
is not what I want to do. I remember my parents saying, like, hey, we're gonna go on vacation. Come. I'm like, well, I can't. I gotta
Yeah.
ask for time off. My parents,
Yeah.
it was so foreign to my parents. They're like, just
Just
go.
go.
I'm like,
Come
Mom,
on.
it doesn't work that way.
Right.
So I think
What's PTO?
yeah, right. And then just my personality wasn't conducive to like corporate and climbing the ladder and like corporate. What's the right word? Just like dynamics.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my personality wasn't conducive to that. So I think we worked for 2 years and then we moved to the Colton. We like
Okay.
left everything, bought a house in Colton, and started our first business there. So my husband became a photographer. So he was the talent, I got the work.
Okay.
And that's kind of the dynamic we've had with all of our businesses. We currently owned craft coffee and dessert carts. So we pop up at events. A lot of where our business has gone, it's experiential marketing and brand activations.
Okay.
So we work with brands to like put up events for influencers, staff, brand recognition. That's just where we're moving our business.
Wow.
But again, like my husband does all the operations, and I'm the one who brings in the business.
That's dope.
That's
man.
so
That's
cool.
dope.
I've always been fascinated by that because
Yeah.
when I remember just I grew up with them and I remember just seeing them like, oh, I'm starting this and I'm starting that. And it's like
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about something though. Like there is I think the idea of entrepreneur is so fascinating for a lot of people. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, you have all this time. Oh, you have, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you're in, and it sounds like you're in full control. But how about you tell us and our audience, what's the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Okay, so my challenges are going to be different than the challenges of like a 21-year-old who doesn't
Okay.
have family.
Fair enough.
I have 3 kids, 7, 4, 8. He turned 8 last week. 8, 4, and 2.
Okay.
So
We
you're
homeschool
busy.
all 3 of our
Okay,
kids.
and you homeschool.
I homeschool, yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom, full-time homeschooling mom, and full-time work-from-home mom.
Holy
Wow.
smokes. Let's go. Okay, all right, so
So
tell us the challenge.
the challenges are different. We find that we do a lot of the bulk of our work when our kids are napping, when our kids are sleeping. So you
Yeah.
find me going to bed at 1, 2 in the morning.
Wow.
And then my kids are up at 6 in the morning,
Wow.
So there's never enough time. And there's never, where I feel like a lot of the challenges come is like my husband and I. Just like our relationship and our marriage
Yeah.
as husband and wife,
Uh-huh.
and not just like parents and like business owners.
Wow.
So just
okay.
having to be really intentional and finding pockets in very limited amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and I'm glad you bring that out because I know our audience. There's a lot of people that are probably in entrepreneurship or thinking about entrepreneurship, and that's part of like counting the cost is understanding that that is going to be one of the biggest challenges
Yeah.
is time management. And how everything, and I think that's one of the biggest. I don't want to say mistakes, but I
Yeah.
think the biggest challenge is that people that go from a 9 to 5
Yeah.
and they go into entrepreneurship, I think that's one of the biggest culture shocks.
Yeah.
The biggest shocks is because you're used to everything being in schedule. You're
Yeah.
used to going into a desk, into an office, or a store or a warehouse.
And and having very defined tasks, right? Like this
Yeah.
is what you're going to do in these hours,
Right.
and this is what we're expecting of these hours.
Yeah.
But when you're in control of those hours, it is so easy to just like, oh, I'm going to create content, and 4 hours later, I'm still creating content.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh, I was supposed to take 30 minutes doing
Yeah.
that.
So in
100%.
8 hours in a typical job can easily be translated into 12, 15, 16 hours
Yeah.
in an entrepreneur's
Mhm.
And
life.
a lot of people don't realize it, that they think, I don't know if I might be wrong. You guys can like correct me or if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people think that entrepreneurs are the most creative people.
Mhm.
And I think that's true to a certain degree, but that's not the case here. I think you have to know how to create work,
Yeah.
because going to 9 to 5 is the creative work for you.
Yeah.
And so, and I think a lot of times, people that go into this industry, we have to say, okay, if you don't have the discipline, you don't have the focus, and you don't have the motivation to move forward in
Yeah.
this, you're not going to see this business
Grow.
Yeah.
grow and multiply.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think an entrepreneur wants to multiply.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And wants to have different multiplications of different spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's because then that kind of alleviates time for you. But yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so so you did mention, like, does it put a lot of pressure on your relationship with your husband, or like on your family, or?
We have to be very intentional about, okay, this is time of just, you and I are just husband and wife right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not parents to our kids. We're not talking about homeschool curriculum. We're
Oh.
not talking about employees. We're not talking about the next job. It's like
Yeah.
right now we just have to focus on us and like figure out how to have a conversation that's just husband and wife. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's so easy to, hey, like I'm talking to this brand and we're going to get this job,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
or we need to hire more people to take on this. It's so easy to just
It
like,
kind of like neglects
back.
your marriage.
oh,
almost.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a
And-
question for, why did you decide to do homeschool?
It works as chaotic as it sounds. It works with our lifestyle. So the bulk of our work is done on the weekends. So our work prep starts on a Thursday, and we're doing the bulk of our work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Wow.
Okay.
So Monday becomes our weekend. If we're sending our kids to school 6-7 hours a day, we're not seeing them. And then when you're supposed to see them on the weekend, we're working all day.
That makes
Yeah.
total sense.
I love that too, man, because it just really goes to show that, you know, as entrepreneurs, you really also have to be willing to, how would you say, not live in the traditional.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
it really,
have to
you know,
step
like you
out.
said, I love that because that's so true. I think we're kind of similar. Right? Mondays are usually our chill days.
Mhm.
You know, it becomes kind of like our Saturday or Sunday, and in that sense, because, you know, and a lot of times people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people that they're, you know, if they're young entrepreneurs or they're starting off or they're coming from that 9 to 5 culture, a lot of times it's like, no. My Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays don't touch.
Yeah.
Don't touch. And it's like, well, no, it's like in the beginning, dude, you're going to be the receptionist.
Mhm.
You're going to be the accountant. You're going to be the customer service.
Yeah.
You're going to be the claims adjuster. You're going to be like, you know,
Everything.
everything. And if you're not willing to answer those text messages when needed, if you're not willing to make those phone calls or
Yeah.
answer those phone calls when needed, you know, you're missing the point that you're providing a service for others.
And there's seasons for everything, right? So when we started our newest business, it was just go, 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 go. We're laser focused. We're working 24/7 and finding pockets in between that time to serve our kids, to homeschool, to be a family, but with a mission. Like growth is the goal. Once you hit that goal, it all of a sudden becomes okay. We can scale back a little with the work and have our employees take over.
Yeah.
But if you miss that season of, you
Hustle?
know, just like hustle, you don't get to the season of, hey,
Yeah.
I can just send out people to do
Yeah.
the work.
And that's really what I see as where the term work hard, play hard, like that's
Yeah.
how that term truly translates for me. Like
Yeah.
what
How do
you're
you
saying right
measure
now.
how do you measure growth personally in your guys'?
For me, it's money. I
Money?
mean, I got 3 kids to feed. It's money.
Wow.
Like, how did we do last month?
Okay.
Yeah.
compared to this month. That's one of the ways we measure sales.
Now, when you feel like you didn't, let's say like your goal, like money, right? Let's
Hmm.
just say you didn't reach your financial uh, budget or your financial goal.
Yeah.
Um, there's how do you react to that?
Now this version of me now goes back to, okay, what did we miss?
Okay.
How did we outreach to potential clients?
Yeah.
What happened? Or is it a holiday season? Was it a shorter
Mm.
month? We look at all of that. Old me would have just like beaten myself up and been like, I'm not good enough. Like I messed this
Wow.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's so good. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about that. How
Yeah.
did you?
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that characteristic growth?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How did you process? How did you get from there to here now?
So I had a baby, my last baby in 2020. And I almost died. I lost half of my blood volume giving birth to her.
Gosh.
I was on bed rest for a month. And I remember just being happy to be with my baby, but everything outside of my baby was just like, it was work. Just like I had to encourage myself to like get up and brush my teeth.
Was it like
To
a
just,
burden?
I didn't see it then, but it was just like a deep, deep depression. I had never dealt with depression or like mental health. So
Yeah.
I didn't see it. My mom recognized it, which is why they were so we live with my parents now.
Okay.
They were so adamant, like, come live with us. Like we have all this room. Their house is 4,000 square feet. They're like, come live with
It's
us.
a beautiful home.
Yeah.
Can I go?
Right?
It is so awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. I love their neighborhood.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we moved in with them, and my mom literally took care of me like I was a baby, just like making sure that all my needs were met. Because for so long, all I did was serve and give,
Yeah.
give. And when I needed to be served, I didn't know how. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to be taken care of because all I did was like hustle.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you've been doing it since a little girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the oldest.
I'm the
And
oldest.
there's a pressure.
And
there's an expectation.
my worth was so tied up in my success.
Your
Like,
performance.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like numbers, metrics.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Let's
Like
go.
that's just like where my worth was wrapped up. And when I needed to rest, when I needed to give things up, just felt like failure.
Yeah.
Before I had my daughter, so I'm a content creator. So I was working with brands left and right, like bringing in crazy money.
Yeah.
Working as an influencer. And then I had a network marketing team where I was leading 700 people.
Wow.
I have my baby and I literally have to like force myself to brush my teeth.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything to give. So having to scale back in that season felt like I was quitting. Felt like, oh, I'm such a failure. Like I'm quitting. I'm giving up.
Yeah.
Moving in with my parents gave me the ability to see you need to be healthy. Like you need to get back to a healthy place where you're excited to wake up in the morning and you're just not looking forward to nighttime to go back to sleep.
Yeah. That's and I feel like I can in that sense I feel like we can relate so much to that because I myself I'm like that.
Yeah.
Your worth is going to be tied to numbers.
To
It's going to be
accolade.
tied to how you're performing. And I think a lot of people, and I think that do you think, and it's just a question, I could be wrong, but do you feel that that pressure is just your personality, or do you feel that you felt that pressure more because you were a woman entrepreneur?
It's a combination of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just the way I was raised too.
Yeah.
If I brought home an A, that wasn't good enough. It was like you had to have an A plus.
Yeah.
You're graduating college in 4 years. Why is it only one major and not two?
Yeah.
Just
Do you
constant.
appreciate that?
I do because it created that drive. People sometimes ask like, how do you do it all? I don't know. I just get it done.
Yeah.
And I feel sane
Like
doing it.
it's like your nature.
It's my nature.
Yeah.
Like I literally, I can't put words into it. Like I've had people say like, oh, create like ebooks or e-guides. I'm like, I don't know how because everything is so natural.
You're just doing
It's so
Yeah,
nat-
just do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is almost sounds like you're not overthinking it. You're just gonna execute it.
I just do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's a personality thing, right? Like better done than not done.
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
you have people who are like, if I'm going to do it, it's going to get done right the first time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I'll get it done and I'll figure out the,
Yeah.
So you sounded like when you had your baby and like when you're saying that in a deep depression.
Oh, yeah.
That really changed something.
It made me realize I don't want to go back to that. So I gave up. I think I cut my content creating work by like 70%.
Oh,
I remember
wow.
like messaging brands and being like, I'm not going to complete that contract. I'm not going to complete this one. I'm not
Wow.
taking that one on.
Mm.
Same thing with my network marketing team. I said, hey, I have nothing to give. I'm stepping away.
So you
Yeah.
kind of had to come to a realization of your capacity.
Yeah.
And so I think is that like a lesson to teach people that want to come out, knowing your capacity?
Yes. And just being okay with asking for help. I think
Yeah.
All right.
my whole life I took asking for help as a sign of weakness.
Sign of weakness. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much wrapped up in that. There's like childhood trauma that attributes to that, of just like I can stand on my own 2 feet and I don't need anyone to help me.
Yeah.
You think that's I don't know, I could be wrong, but I actually feel like that's like a normal society concept, like where most people think like that.
In the entrepreneur sector, yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's like it's the hustle and grind culture, right?
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
I get it. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to, and I love, we want to appear that we're having success,
Mhm.
and I think that's very important in today's culture.
Yeah.
Is that's why, that's what drives social media. That's what
Mhm.
drives all these different sites that we're living in today. Is
Yeah.
we want to show the best appearance that we can, and at a certain point it's good. But I love how you're coming so transparent with your
Yeah.
story, that you did come to a point where you didn't know it at that moment, but you were depressed.
Yeah.
You were
Severely
depressed.
depressed.
Wow.
And
And
your
I
mental.
didn't know it.
Yeah.
Now, it also too, I'm sorry if we're anchoring here.
Oh, no.
Okay. So, because I guess I'm just really curious because like I've known Cynthia for some time,
Yeah.
and I can tell you there's different Cynthias I know. And that should be, and I hope that should be appreciated because
yeah.
like some people only treat Cynthia 2010 Cynthia, but like I can see the present Cynthia,
Mhm.
and like before there was this like you were kind of like, I've always, if you had a spirit animal, I would say that your spirit animal is like a bull, and once you put red in front of her, homegirl is going to run you over. No one's stopping her.
Yeah.
But now it doesn't seem like, you seem like you're more like a tame. You're
Mhm.
tamed.
Yeah.
And like I'm so curious because like you're now choosing the quality you want.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that's such an incredible like endeavor, like a milestone, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think when, moving into my parents' home, giving up like this like aesthetic home that I'm like presenting on social media. I had my babies on bed rest for a month, put on 42 pounds in a month. I come out of that and like my body's completely different. Just the way I feel about life is different. My drive is different. It's no longer there. So it was very humbling
Okay.
to
Wow.
all of a sudden come out of this like season, and what I'm presenting to the world is, hey, like I'm 35 years old and I'm living in my parents' house.
Yeah.
And our society associates that with failure. I remember even you asking like, hey, do you mind if I ask? Is it like a financial thing? And I was like, no, like finances are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But, our society doesn't recognize, hey, like this mom really needed help.
Yeah.
This mom was barely surviving, and my mom saw that. Like my mom saw that need.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like it makes me teary because I can't even imagine where I would be without this season
Wow.
of just like being able to like dream and like not have to like be pushed by adrenaline and like survival.
That's
Because
amazing.
like that's what I was like living off of.
Yeah.
And then I come into my parents' home and my parents are like, rest.
Wow.
Just rest. Like all you have to worry about is resting and like be with your babies.
And that's so cool. That's so cool.
It's a blessing, and
It's
I know
such-
it's
it
one that
is.
not many people have.
Yeah. But I think that's why it's so important and I think that's a message that needs to be spoken into young entrepreneurs, that you need to stop thinking that you have to do things alone.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of people don't have, maybe they're listening, goes, yeah, but I don't have those parents like
Mhm.
like she does. But you know what? There are some good people out there.
Yeah.
There are some good communities out there that we need to learn that more.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we love this podcast so much, is because we really want to encourage people that it's okay to have real raw conversations, and to really express how you feel.
And I remember when Aaron asked me to be on the podcast, he said, like, are you comfortable with talking about anything? And I said, I talk about everything and anything on my Instagram. And I show up like,
Yeah.
I haven't slept in a day because my baby's sick. I just came out of the gym. Like, I show up the way I show up.
Yeah, your social media. I was checking it
Yeah.
out. We were talking
It's
about that
The
earlier.
way
It's so cool, so raw.
And the reason I do that is because we live in such a curated world.
We do.
Yeah.
The last thing a tired mom who literally does not want to wake up, they just want to sleep because they're so tired and they're so depressed. The last thing they need to see is another mom showing up on their social media looking put together, perfect home. My life is great, when you're really struggling and you're not letting them know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think even one of your posts recently, I think I was, because I do follow you now on social media, and then and I think it was, I don't know if it was a story or a post where you're like, if you're I am not a fun mom or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, if you are, how do you do it?
Yeah. Like, I want to be the fun, chill mom.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I was just telling Aaron, my kids are intense. So when we're out, I'm just like military mom. I'm barking orders at them,
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I scale that back and just become like fun, chill mom?
Yeah.
I think too, like, we're everything you're talking about, like, we're starting this new year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially around this time, it's all about goals.
Yeah.
It's all about New Year's resolution. It's all about change. And it really isn't all about that. And I think, like, I'm thinking about when you hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of us hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like eventually we will all hit rock bottom and we'll find ourselves in a very black hole. But that's the biggest lesson you'll learn.
Yeah.
So like you find it humbling.
Yeah.
You find it comforting at the same time. But it also taught you how to make better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think so many times we can hustle, but really I think when it comes down to it, we need to know what's really important.
Yeah.
And I hear this and I'm just like I'm so inspired by it. And I
Yeah.
think especially when we start a year like this, we have all these ambitions, we have all this drive, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna lose weight, I'm gonna go to the gym, and I'm gonna this is my new lifestyle. But what's your take on that? And when it comes to goals, how has that changed in your life?
So I used to do that. I used to have like a vision board for like my year.
Oh,
This is what I'm going to hit. This is where we're going to go. This is just
wow.
insane.
Okay, so
right?
like, was it like super intense?
Yeah,
Like,
intense.
okay.
And then my poor husband, like, I mean, you know Johnny, just like very calm, just like chill.
He's an
dude.
Enneagram 9, right?
Yes, he's a peacemaker.
He's a peacemaker, and
You
you're
know,
a
I'm a 3.
a hard 3.
You
Yeah.
know? So my poor husband, just like dragging him along. I think after going through that situation, I even remember like 2022, walking into 2022 and saying like, I don't have any goals. Like the only goals for my year are my kids healthy? Am I moving into like a truly joyful season of life? And is my marriage healthy?
Mm.
Because prior to that, like I was considering divorce. Just all of these things that
Yeah.
affect everything in the family dynamic. And it wasn't because, I don't love my husband. It's just like everything was so off.
Yeah.
You know? And by the grace of God and my husband, who's like, no, girl, like that's not happening. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
He
Not getting
loves
rid of
you,
me.
like-
yeah, like we're not doing that. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna work through this.
What? I have
But
a
sometimes you
question.
feel,
go
but
ahead.
but sometimes you feel when you're going through that journey. Sometimes you the only thing you can see are the problems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You're like drowning.
The sun bothers you. You're
Yeah.
like, why is the sun here? Like,
Yeah.
I don't.
You en- it's
I want it to
everything
be dark.
frustrates you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being in that state, and like you're like, at that point you're thinking about divorce and things is off and everything seems to be thinning out. And I know you're a believer. Where did this lead you with you and God? What does God becomes in this picture?
In that season, I was mad.
Okay, you're
I remember
pissed.
just like talking to God and being like, why am I in this valley again? Like why, like I did everything right. Like
Mm-hmm.
I work hard, I serve, just angry at God.
Okay.
And then I remember one time, my mom is a very wise woman and she's a believer and a prayer warrior. And I remember one time she came to me and she goes, you take care of your work and business more than you take care of your soul.
Oh, oh,
And I was like, what you talking about, Mom?
Yeah.
that's good. Let's talk
Yes.
about that. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And I remember sitting on that and taking that in. And yes, saying, you're right, I do. And she goes, what happens if your soul is broken and your body's broken? There's no business.
Yeah.
There's no, all of this that you want to do for your family is gone because you're neglecting the most important asset, which is you
That's
and your
so
soul.
good.
So
That's-
as she's like anointing me with oil,
Oh, praise God.
Man, yeah, you know what, man? Like, thank God for
Yeah.
Veronica, man.
for
She's-
prayer mamas,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Because they always know what to say and how to say it in the right moment,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes, like, again, I go back to that. We need to be people that know how it, whether if it's our family or other people within community or finding a church, but really getting into community, because we can't do this alone as
Yeah.
much as social media tries to teach us. And I think it's becoming more of a culture. Like, I don't know if you noticed that, but entrepreneurs more and more, something big that's coming out a lot is coaching,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mentors and coaches, because it's a lot of people are giving into that because they're starting to realize that it's not just about how well I can do business, because some people and it sounds like you guys were very good
Yeah.
and very well versed in doing business, and you guys had clientele, and you guys had the
Yeah.
money flowing, and you guys had everything, but there were other aspects of your life that were falling apart.
Everything was falling
Yeah.
apart.
That was,
you know?
I think you're like referring to your basic elements of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I truly believe that if I have like this theory, and like this is why I have a faith in God, in Jesus. I consider myself very skeptical. And so like I like to analyze, I like to look at things to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I also accept that there's some things that are not logical
Yeah.
that are truth as well.
Yeah.
So for example, I believed that walking with the Lord, there is a complete satisfaction that is beyond material, that's beyond anything of this world. And I can walk in the joy of the Lord. I can walk in the love of Christ. I can walk in the peace of Christ. I believe in those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I found myself performing, doing, and executing and becoming successful. But those elements with God, it's not love.
Yeah.
I'm not at peace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very pissed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've lost my dad, and I'm like, but everything is good, but over here in my heart,
Everything's messed up.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I wanna crawl in a hole,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I find myself just like trying to numb myself,
Yeah.
with whatever it is, and
Mhm.
so I think like that's what I hear from you when your
Mhm.
mom was telling you that
Oh,
advice.
yeah.
I was just like, oh my God, that's like yes,
And we live in a culture that almost that says if you're an adult, you no longer need your parents, right? Like you no longer listen to advice from your
Mhm.
parents.
Mhm.
And I remember moving into my parents' home and my mom lovingly just calling me out, just being like, "Hey, the way you're talking to your husband, not okay. Hey, the way you're responding to that, you need to cool down."
Oh.
Because the way
Yeah.
my depression, the way I was depressed, I was angry. And I
Yeah.
didn't know it because I was like, when you think about postpartum depression, you think of, oh, I don't want my baby, but all I
Yeah.
wanted was my baby. Like I found true joy, contentment, happiness just being snuggled in bed with my baby,
Yeah.
you know?
But what it was doing exteriorly, and that's I know that I can relate to that when I went through a very dark moment in my
Mhm.
life through with depression. It was there was no I didn't know how to dig in or express or identify the raw emotions.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't. The only emotion I knew was anger.
Yeah, same.
That's all I knew. So and it sucks because I feel it when you're talking about this. I feel it because I it just takes me back to that time that I went through where, man, like, my wife was trying to be the most loving person, and I remember that too. I remember just going, and I remember thinking the same. I just want a divorce,
Yeah.
and not so much because the way she was treating me or anything, but it was because I just felt like I couldn't be around anyone, and I didn't know how to just stand my ground and say, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
I feel this. I feel alone. I know I'm not alone, but I feel alone.
Yeah.
Um, this is why I go and I do this. This is why I do this. It's not because I don't want to be around or I don't, but and that's what it also seems like you were able to come to with the help of your mom, was to really start seeing the how you were reacting on the outside,
Yeah.
but
Just
how it
being,
was able to identify,
yeah.
okay, why are you really reacting that way though?
Just being called out,
Yeah,
in a very loving way because I didn't see it. I
yeah,
didn't see like, hey, the way I'm talking to my husband's disrespectful. I
yeah,
didn't see that, and I needed someone to tell me like, hey. So stepping back and being like, oh, okay, I probably could have responded to that
yeah.
differently, or I could have reacted to the situation with more compassion or more grace.
Hmm.
Yeah, do you feel like your parental skills, like the way your mom and dad, do you feel like you're mimicking or replicating your parents' parental skills, or do you feel like it's different?
It's different,
Okay,
yeah.
and how so?
So, and just like the backstory to this. When I was 6 years old, my parents took us to Honduras.
Okay.
So we're in Honduras. We're living there for a year. My parents left us there.
Oh.
So I woke up one morning and my parents were gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think we were there for like 10 months. Those whole 10 months, I want to say probably like 3-4 months into that, I'm 7 years old at this point. An older cousin starts sexually abusing me.
Oh,
So
okay.
that just creates like this whole being in this situation and realizing, hey, like I don't know how to process feelings.
Right.
Oh, wait, it's because I learned how to shut off, like completely shut off,
Okay.
and having to process that and say, I need to learn how to process another feeling other than anger. Because that's all I knew how to do. Just like react,
And how long did you hold that in for?
I think I told my parents about it 8th grade. Eighth
How did they
grade.
take that?
Well, actually, no. When they brought me back to the US, I actually had to go to the doctor because I had a bad infection.
Okay.
And I remember my parents asking me, hey, and I blamed it on our babysitter. Somehow it just felt cleaner to me to blame it on a girl. Like, oh, it was this girl.
Wow.
And we left it at that. I get to 8th grade and they're talking about shipping him to the US because he's been a troublemaker. And my parents were going to welcome him into our home. And I said, no, absolutely not. And then I told my parents what
That's
had
when
happened.
you finally. Yeah.
That's when I finally came clean. I said, no, this is why he's not it's not a good idea for you.
Yes.
Here,
How did they take that?
Um, I want to say my mom could relate to it and she understood. I think my dad took it as like, it must have not been that big of a deal. It's probably something small. And he just like shut it off.
Okay,
even-
disassociated.
Yeah, because we've recently had conversations about that where I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like this wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't like let me just, no, this was a big deal. And it happened many times, because he'll like bring him up and stuff. And I'm like, there's nothing in this world that makes me want to have a conversation about this person.
Right.
And that's something so common, right?
Yeah.
That
Especially in Latino families.
in Latino families,
Mhm.
and it's so common for either both parents or one of the parents. It's difficult to acknowledge.
Mhm.
Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How
It
did your
makes
dad
me, like,
eventually?
It makes me nervous. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, how did your dad eventually come around to it and to actually validate what
I don't think
what
he
had?
has. I don't think he has.
It's hard.
I think
It's
my
hard.
mom has had conversations with him, and my mom and I had very deep, intimate conversations
Yeah.
about both of our experiences with abuse. But I think my dad just has kind of like,
He just couldn't accept it.
yeah,
And like
And
you
I've
can't
even
accept
asked.
that happened to my daughter.
Or it
Yeah,
happened, but you know what?
it's
Sometimes like we say, "Oh, they're little. What do they know?" It
yeah,
was probably not that big
And
of
I
a
hate
deal.
that
yeah.
statement because that boils
Yeah.
me. Like it's like no, it's not because they're little. Is they did that's out of bounds. You know what I
So,
mean? But yeah,
so going back to your question,
Yeah.
I'm raising my kids to like validate their feelings
Mm.
mm,
because all I knew growing up was just like shutting off.
wow,
And I got so good at that that it was almost scary. Where
Yeah.
like you could tell me something and just a wall and like I wouldn't feel anything,
wow,
you know? So I'm my husband and I are working hard to raise kids who they've gotten to experience and feel every emotion, not just one,
right,
you know, and just like validate
Yeah.
them and say it's okay to feel this way.
Yeah, and I know Aaron talks a lot about that too, where with his kids too, right? That and I think that is something that a lot of us that grew up first, like second generation,
Hmm.
Hispanic families. I know I've with my kids too. Like it's something that I'm working on. I
Yeah.
don't have it down,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely working on that. Where I'm allowing them, to freely express themselves.
Hmm.
Freely. And sometimes it backfires on us because
yeah,
it's like a little bit too much. Where it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like I don't know how to cope with this, But I learned that um, from my own experience too. But one time we were actually reading an article. I don't know if it was we were reading an article or we were listening to a podcast, but it was talking about a child and about how children when children tend to cry more with the parents. It was talking about that, and it was like,
Yeah.
do you ever want, like, and what's one of the first things we always try to do with the kids when they're crying is like we try to like get them to be quiet,
Yeah.
and then the psychologist was saying that the part of the reason why they do that or why they're whiny, sometimes like you ever see children, that adolescents that they're whiny or they go or they like we in Hispanic culture tan chiqueados,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
por qué tan chiqueados? Why are they so spoiled?
Yeah.
And he says that when children are able to freely express that with the parents, it means one thing. It means that they're comfortable with that parent.
You're safe.
They're
Yeah.
safe.
a safe
Yeah.
space.
We
It's a
read the
safe
same article.
space.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
funny that you bring that up because my son Liam is our most emotional child,
Yeah.
Mm.
and I remember him. He's cried and cried, and I don't know why. I have no please, like no judgment. I'm a changed man now, but I used to get very angry when he cried.
Yeah.
I used to get
Yeah.
like, "Why are you crying? Like,
Yeah.
stop it!
Yeah.
Just stop it." And then
It
Yeah.
triggers you.
my wife is
Mhm.
like, "Hey, can I talk to you into our room?" And I'm
With
like,
a white girl.
dun.
my Canadian
Yeah, the
wife was
Canadian.
like, "Is
Let's
that the
talk.
only way you know how to respond?"
Ooh,
I go,
dang.
She challenged your intelligence,
Yeah.
bro.
gnarly challenge. It was a gnarly challenge, and I go, "Well," and I didn't know what to say to that. And I
Yeah.
go, "What?" And she goes, "Is that the only way you know how to respond to a 6-year-old?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well," and I didn't really like. Now I feel like if I explain myself, I'm gonna lose that one.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Well, I don't." I had to be honest. I'm like, "Yes."
Dun,
Yes,
dun,
that's the
Yeah.
dun.
only way I know how.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Thank you for being honest. I'm gonna show you how to like respond to your crying son."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay. You're going to hug him. You're gonna let him cry until he's done. And when he's done, you say, 'What's wrong, buddy?'"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go, "How long is that gonna take?" And she
Yeah.
goes, "Do you love your son?" I said, "Yes." Then you need to learn to experience this love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I now well, my son still cries. So my son is still the most emotional
Mhm.
one out of my 2 girls. My 2 girls are like they're like me,
Yeah.
and but like now if any of my kids cry, I'd be like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And like I was being stern the other day and I made my oldest cry and she's like, "Well, the way you're talking to me, you're so aggressive." And I'm like,
She's also a teenager now, huh?
yeah, that's a
Oh,
whole different
man.
story. But okay, so with that being said, like I wanted to ask you that question because of how you're raising your children.
Hmm.
What is your biggest principle you want to leave them with on this earth that you want your kids to be like, this is the principle, this is the way?
It's very cliche, but I want them to know that they can do whatever they want. Like they don't have to meet an expectation from me. My
Yeah.
love isn't conditional on their career. I have no expectations for what they do if they're happy. If you're happy and this is what you want to do. I mean, you want to be a dog groomer, it makes you happy, you can be a dog groomer.
Okay.
I didn't grow up with that. I grew up, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer. Why? I don't know. My parents were entrepreneurs. Like I wasn't even going to
Yeah.
work in that field,
Yeah.
you know?
And
It was
it's
just for them to say like my daughter's a doctor, my daughter's a lawyer.
the
Right.
the
You
the
know?
accomplishment, the title.
Yes, the
Yeah.
title.
And I think because now, like back then, entrepreneurship wasn't a thing. It was just more like when you share the story, it was more like they just wanted to make money to feed
Yeah.
the 8
the
The
hustle.
kids.
kids, yeah.
Just to,
You
just
know,
to pay the bills,
yeah, it wasn't really, and that's how that's one thing that I love about here in the Empire, specifically here in San Bernardino. You know, you see that so much. You see so many immigrant families, immigrant
Mm-hmm.
people that, and I love to see it.
Yeah.
It stirs something up inside of me when I drive down the streets and I see a taquero.
We see it
You
in the
know,
car dealerships all the time. Like
yeah,
you
and
see these people coming in, no English,
Yeah, all of it.
they don't have documentation, whopping out $20,000. Here you
yeah,
Yeah,
go.
easy.
I'm like, how?
What?
You
yeah,
sell elotes for a living?
Yeah.
But it's just like
yeah.
that commitment, right? Like
Yeah.
that drive. Like we came here to better ourselves.
Yeah, and to see that happen, and then it, but you know, now we have now that entrepreneurship is such a popular
Yeah.
topic, you know, and a lot of people are going into that. I think 2020 was a springboard for a lot of new entrepreneurs. A lot. I know it
100%.
was the
Yeah.
springboard a lot for us, for my wife and I. My wife, she's always had an entrepreneur spirit. She always does things, and she's not a 9 to 5. Like
Right.
I've been able to do it, and I don't like it, you know. But she, for a fact, like she's just a go getter, you know.
Oh,
And
that's
that's one thing
awesome.
that I love about my wife so much, that she just has this positive attitude, you know. And but I love that what you're doing is because you understand both sides. You understand that the entrepreneurship side of it, but then you also understand the pressures of growing up. So it just, the understanding. I always say this, that the experiences we go through should lead us to a place of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it should lead us to a place of wisdom. You know, now it's understanding, experience put together, boom, wisdom. And now we're able to teach the next generation, which is our children,
Yeah.
or people that we can, or come around us, that watch us, that we mentor, that might even, like on social media, where we have the ability now to teach them something different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I like that. And I want to ask you one last question. Um, what is your biggest challenge moving forward?
In my business,
Yeah, I would say yeah, in your business. And
right.
how are you moving? What are your what's your strategy on handling big challenges moving forward with your businesses?
I'll talk about our Always Kind Co business because it's the most tangible one. All the other
Okay.
businesses we do are online, right? So
Okay.
they don't really require a team, and it's different. The dynamics are different. But our biggest challenge right now, and I think it's a challenge that most entrepreneurs are facing and will continue to face, is just staffing. It's so small. It's so
Staffing?
small. Yeah, just
Staffing.
employees.
Really? Why is that a challenge?
Finding employees has been the biggest challenge. Like we pay well. Like
Okay.
we're our business, the way it's set up, it's meant to be a complement to whatever you're currently doing. So
Mm-hmm.
we look for like college students, people who work in retail, and we complement that. We pay
Yeah.
$22 an hour. They come work for us 6 hours, 15 hours on the weekend, and you're getting paid $22
Yeah.
plus gas plus meals.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find people who want to work.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I just from speaking to other business owners, they're having the same problem. My sisters are having the same problem with their
Yeah,
businesses.
and I think I have a little theory for that.
Okay.
I think the one thing that I've noticed is, I think the reason why it's so challenging is because, well, I mean, maybe I don't. Well, no, you live here in the IE
Yeah,
now.
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah.
warehouses.
Yeah.
Yeah, warehouses. The way, I mean, and they have their own challenge, but a lot of these warehouses are starting to compete a lot better, a lot better. Like
But their pay is $18 an hour.
yeah, but
You
the
get a 30 minute.
incentives,
Oh yeah, the incentives, the sign up bonuses.
yeah,
Yeah.
the sign up bonuses, and then there's incentives. Like for example, I was talking to a friend who he's in that industry, and like his base pay is about 18 to 20 bucks an hour.
Yeah.
But after incentives, like if he meets a certain goal, he can be getting paid up to $28
Oh, nice.
an hour.
Yeah.
It can equivalent up to that.
I still couldn't. I still
The
couldn't work.
the IE is the warehouse
Warehouse.
mecca of the U.S.
Yeah.
I did not know
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's big, but you know what? But the problem I see with that is, and I know we're in the middle of answering a question, but the problem that I see with that is that it's at the same time it's drowning people's dreams.
Yeah.
Like
don't
you know,
like
and
that.
like here in San Bernardino, like that's the thing is that that's one of the things that I feel, and that I know that's a whole nother topic, but I feel like
I
that's
love
one
it,
of the
though.
things
Yeah, me too.
that is drowning people's ability to become homeowners, people's ability to start new businesses, people's ability to dream the bigger ambition.
Yeah.
And it's creating a culture. So it's a good, but the bad that I see is that it's not establishing families, strong families here
No,
in San Bernardino.
And I also think too, I don't mean to sound so like cutthroat on this, but it kind of creates like a domestic environment where it becomes less family value and it becomes more commercialized everything.
Yeah.
And there's no uniqueness in the city because of it. So
Yeah.
like you go to certain cities they have
Yeah.
like mom and pop shops that are actually thriving, and
Yeah.
I love local business. I'm all
I
up.
do too.
I love local hats, and I
Mhm.
love wearing. I much rather wear local clothes.
Yeah.
I much rather everything that's done locally. I love to support that
Yeah.
because those are somebody's dreams. Those are somebody's hustle. Those are somebody's
Yeah.
sacrifices.
Someone's dinner.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly. And so, so going back, like with you, like in you're pursuing. I really like what you said earlier about like how you pursue your goals and you really simplified.
Yeah. And it gave me vision. We started this business that we currently have. Johnny had COVID last August, so
Okay.
September.
Okay.
So I literally came up with this business in bed while I was like dealing with COVID. I was like, well, I got all this time here in this
Yeah.
room. Let me come up with something, you know?
Hey, some get those ideas in bed, some get them in the bathroom.
Yeah. Moraine, a high fever, coming up with business ideas.
That's dope.
We launched the business, and for 2 months, nothing. I was like, dude, this sounded like such a great business idea. Like I had everything, like no one, like it's not working. I start tapping into my network just from working as an influencer and having contacts with all of these like big companies and big brands. I start messaging them and saying, hey, like I'm transitioning out of just being a content creator and starting this. This is how I feel we can serve you. And boom, our first job was with anthropology. And that just like plummeted.
Wow.
Like the growth has been so intense that we can't keep up. That's why for us, finding people who can join us and work alongside of us has been the biggest challenge.
Jeez. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's a good challenge, man.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
good challenge, and I hope that a lot of people can. I think a lot of people are. Man, this is such an awesome episode.
know,
I
I don't wanna
honestly don't
stop.
want to finish it because
I got so much.
there's so
I have like so
there's
many
many
questions.
more
We
questions.
should definitely bring you back in
Yeah.
with Johnny.
Yeah. So talk about like how can people connect with you? How can people
I'm on social media. I'm an open book. I love helping people. I don't gatekeep anything. If you want to start business, you want to start the same business as me, I will help you. I will walk you through the process because
That's
I
awesome.
truly believe there's room at the table for everyone.
well, my wife's definitely gonna connect with
Yeah,
you
have her
because
connect,
she's actually in the process of. Well, we have a cafe
Okay, cool.
here at the church. We have a church cafe, and it's called Life Cafe, and it just serves now just for the during services and things
Yeah.
like that. But she's definitely wanting to go mobile.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like I don't know how to help you. Like I don't know what to do.
Or like my husband, because coffee, I mean, Aaron will tell you this, coffee is our passion.
Ooh,
Like
Very good
every
coffee.
trip we've
Love
ever
coffee, too.
every trip we take is like, how many coffee shops can we hit?
Uh-huh.
And the core, like the core of that is community. Like, how are these coffee shops creating community? Like, what is the dynamic in this coffee shop? Like, who are they attracting?
Yeah.
I love to do that. Like, I'll sit at a coffee shop and be like, oh, you're attracting these kind of people, or this is like demographic that you're bringing in.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm a nerd when it comes to that
That's
stuff.
awesome.
And my
Yeah.
husband is a designer through and through. He's an artist, so he just wants to go and see, how are you designing? How are you setting up?
Yeah, you guys are such a power couple
Yeah,
Such a
and we
power
definitely
couple.
need to bring you guys back in.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no anything I do without Johnny.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm the
That's
dreamer. I can cast vision. I can cast dream, but I literally give him, like, my 4-year-old can make better drawings. I'm like, this is what I want,
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
what advice would you give? And I know maybe this would be for your husband too, but maybe from the wife's perspective, what advice would you give to a family, to a couple that in that situation where, because my wife is like that. My wife is the dreamer.
Okay.
She's the dreamer. She's the one with the positive attitude. She's the we can do it attitude. And sometimes I feel like I stop that because I don't know how to.
Are you the logical one?
I am. I'm super logical. Like it needs to make sense in paper. Like even the podcast, like like the times we sat down, like it's like
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to as a wife to other wives or
Yeah.
to other girlfriends, partners, on how to work with that dynamic?
Okay, so if your husband is the logical one, and for the most part, and I think this is true for all dreamers, we're not logical people. So my husband is the youngest of the boys in his family, and both his brothers are like logical humans, excel everything. They know their car's going to need an oil change 6 months from now, and they budgeted for that. So when they ask about business, they're like, so what? I'm like, look, this is the way I do business. As long as I'm making more than what I'm spending, it works.
Yeah.
And
The
then
math, it just boom.
boom, I will figure all the other stuff
Yeah.
later,
Yeah.
And what I can tell women who are wanting to jump into business and who have partners who might not be very supportive,
Yeah.
is just do it.
Yeah.
Do it, and if they love you, they're gonna come along.
Yeah.
And don't take their logic as, oh, you're bringing me down or you're not encouraging me. Just acknowledge that they're
Yeah.
logical people. Do it anyway and show them, and then that logic is gonna help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And I think, man, she's like talking to me directly.
Hey, no, totally. I'm like, listen up, George.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Both
go
my
ahead.
husband and I are not logical, so we're having to hire people to do that part of our business.
There we go. And that's
so
yeah.
you will be able to provide that for her.
Yeah, and I have been like I've been that person to where okay, this has to make sense. Like we've done remodeling in the home. We've
Yeah.
done like a rental thing that we got into too, and so it that was a difficult dynamic for us to adjust because I'd be like, she would come and she would just and I'd say, and we one time we had an open and honest conversation. We had an offbeat conversation,
Yeah.
and I told her, and it was in 2020, and I said, look, okay, I know the way that I come off is so let's try to understand something. And I remember I told her, I said, look, this is all I'm asking for. If you were to simply approach me in a way where, look, not everything has to be figured out, but at least something that's tangible that I can hold on to. And from there, I can take the rest.
Let me speak for your wife on this.
Let me speak to your wife on this one. She's like, go ahead.
When you are in that dreamer, like visionary, I have idea mode, everything that you're asking for is literally like you're trying to pull nails. It's like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I've got we're driven by like the magic and the dream. And once we're in it, it's like, all right, I got to hunker down and take care of everything else, right?
Yeah.
Because this business has to operate legally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but when you're asking, it's like it's like you're pumped to go to a concert.
Yeah.
And your parents are like, well, who's going to be there? And what are you guys going to be doing?
Or you
They're
gotta
the
be-
Debbie
all the
Downers,
details.
right? All the
Concert
details.
starts at 7, but you got to be back by 9.
Yeah, you're like, no, mom.
No.
Like, so it's like the Debbie Downer in you. Like
Yeah.
you're not trying to be, right? You're just trying to
Yeah.
be logical.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you say that because I'm an Enneagram 7, so I'm an enthusiast. I'm a dreamer. I love,
Yeah.
but like as logical as I can be, I'm very logical in my faith. But when it comes to like venturing Avengers, and I love to like my wife is the string to my balloon. I'm literally the balloon, and like she doesn't let me go too far off. And I think that's like the compliment of
Yeah.
knowing how to respect each other's roles, each
Yeah.
other, and like I know the things I want to go after is like it's like a lot what you're saying. It's very
Yeah.
magical and it's this. But
Mhm.
then once somebody starts talking about details, I'm just like,
You don't want to do it because they
Yeah.
just stole away like that magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
late.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, but yeah, that's such a, but it is an actual thing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
guess,
high, honestly.
Yeah, no, and I see that, and now that you explain that,
Mhm.
I think, and it's so good, and of course I do ask it for myself, but I know that there are a lot of couples out there,
Yeah.
where one or the other, they're sitting on a dream,
Yeah.
they're sitting on something that
Just go for it.
a side hustle,
Just
yeah,
do it.
just go for
Yeah.
it, just
And-
go for it,
And this comes from my parents again. My parents are always like, we didn't speak the language, we didn't have money, and we
on.
just went for it.
yeah.
yep,
The lessons that you're going to learn, even in failure, are worth more than what you're going to learn in college, and they're cheaper than what you're going to pay at college.
yeah,
right.
You know, because if I tell you like how much money I paid for a Cal State education, you're like, dude, that's Cal Poly. That's how much money you paid.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and the experiences and the knowledge that I gained from just like doing something and failing,
yeah,
huge. Like I just had to scale back on one of our businesses, and it's a learning lesson and being
Yeah.
like, okay, I can't do it all, and I can't fully execute and like drive growth in businesses if I'm trying to do multiple things at once.
yeah,
So I had to look at, okay, this business is creating more revenue for us. And at the end of the day, even though it's a service, it requires less from me than providing a product, which is what my other business is.
yeah,
So I had to scale back and say, hey, like I will no longer be shipping. Like this is going to remain just for like locals and for wholesale accounts.
Wow.
gotcha,
And it killed me because a lot
Yeah.
of my business comes from my social media followers, and they're everywhere.
Yeah,
No?
and that I really like how you touched on that too, because we were having a conversation with my wife and then another friend also, where it's one thing when you say I need to scale back or I need to give something up when you're doing absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
When let's say you're and I think that in Hispanic culture we're taught that a lot, like, hey, go clean your room,
Yeah.
and then we're watching TV like,
Yeah.
hey, stop being lazy, or like, stop doing this, what I mean, no seas flojo, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, go do this. I told you to go do this. And so we kind of carry that into our adult life, where if we stop doing something, it automatically translates into we're being lazy or we're giving up.
Okay, I have a funny
Let's
story
go.
for you guys. I did a TikTok video that went viral on this. And I had another account on Instagram reposted it.
Okay.
It's called Being Latino.
Okay.
And it's literally just me. It's a video of me saying, it's the kitchen behind me, and there's dishes in the back. And I said, why did it take me till my 30s to learn how to do this? And I'm sitting down drinking coffee and the dishes are behind me. So pretty much saying like, I can sit down and I can enjoy this coffee and those dishes are there.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
perfectly fine.
And it's okay.
Porque like, there's a saying in Spanish, esos platos no se van a lavar solos.
Yeah, or like, ¿cómo vas a descansar con la casa sucia?
Yeah. And so like we've translated that so much, and because we're talking about that, we're talking about and
You want to translate that for our non?
what is it?
our
What did we say? Oh, the dishes
Spanish.
aren't gonna wash themselves.
Or how are you going to relax with a dirty house?
Yeah, and
I
it's
got roasted on that page.
and what's so funny is that we've translated that into our adulthood, many of us, and it sometimes makes us hard. Sometimes we can carry so much on our plate. We can carry so much in our businesses and what we're doing with school, with entrepreneurship, even ministry. And sometimes we're afraid. We're afraid to say, you know what? I'm gonna have to say no to this
Yeah.
because I need to maximize this. And I was telling my wife, and we're having a conversation, and I said, and I had to tell her something. I said, you know what, like, I don't honestly, I want to encourage you because I don't ever want you to say that you're giving something up
You
or you're
clipped her
quitting.
wings. Yeah.
I said, because first of all, you're a great mom. I said, and I remember that day, it was like, it was a Saturday, and that Saturday she got up early to come to worship practice.
Mm-hmm.
She did an hour of worship practice. She went back home, and to help me, I'm over there. I had just have the two boys at that
Yeah.
moment. And my son has a football game. So I get up, I'm getting ready. She comes back to the house. She didn't have to, but she comes back to the house to help me get the boys ready. She then right away leaves because she has a photo shoot.
Mm.
She goes, does her photo shoot.
Is she a photographer?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
She does her photo shoot, and then she goes and she meets us at my son's football game. And I told her, babe, I only had to do one thing, and I was going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, look at what you do. I said, don't ever think that. And I think that's such a message to moms.
Yeah. We live in a culture where moms are expected to be everything while looking like we're not doing anything. But if you're not doing anything, God forbid, you're no longer a good mother.
Mm.
So it's just,
So it almost
hard.
sounds like you're saying that we need a lot of grace.
oh, yeah.
And I think we
That's-
should be learning about that grace, extending grace
Mhm.
to our wives,
Yeah.
and
And
husbands as well.
husbands
Of
too.
course, it's just our partners, and
yeah.
and within the relationships, and I think that's important. I think it's important because our kids need to witness that.
Yeah.
And our kids need to say, "Hey, it's okay. Cleaning time will be in an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. Let's
Yeah.
just finish the show."
No,
Yeah.
you need to clean now.
Yeah,
And
that's how it is.
That's how we grew up.
Yeah.
So it's safe
Yeah.
to say that most Latinos are highly attached to what they do,
Oh, 100%.
right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a successful day if I didn't tackle all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
it's just our culture.
And I think that
Yes,
comes,
and
and I think that comes a lot from, because your family back in Honduras, they were
Mhm.
cattle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Milk,
Mhm.
dairy, and all that. And I think, like, my family, for example, too, like, they come from the fields,
Mhm.
and so it really was, if we don't get this right, we're not gonna eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really did come down to a lot.
it
And I
was all
think
about survival.
Yeah.
I know it. Even with my parents' success, sometimes they look at how much I'm getting paid for like an Instagram reel, and they're just like, "What? Like esta mensada?" And I'm like,
So I have a
sorry, Mom.
question. What would you like to tell? Because not everybody's an entrepreneur
Mhm.
in our audience and our listeners.
Yeah.
But this is a story, your story, where you come from, and this is your journey, your personal
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
But you obviously have a lot to offer in on a fundamental principles that you learn from life. What would be your message to our audience as moving forward and with encouragement and inspiration, and people can like listen and say, you know what, I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
What would you want to tell them?
And if you want, go ahead and look just over there and speak it. So speak your heart. We won't
Okay.
interrupt you.
This is not to over spiritualize anything because
Mhm.
I'm not that type of person. But it doesn't matter. And this is what I've learned in the last couple of years. It doesn't matter what season of life you're in. There's always one truth. And it doesn't matter how dark the day feels. It doesn't matter how impossible the task seems. God is good. Like you just hold on to that. And it doesn't matter. You can tackle on anything if you hold on to that truth. Like,
Wow.
hey, even when I feel like this, God is good. Even when the world is telling me that I'm failing, God is good.
Dang.
Even when I'm kicking myself for being a terrible mom, because the world likes to tell us that we're terrible moms, God is good. And you hold on to that, and slowly you start shedding the world's expectations of you. And you suddenly become this kind of person who truly does not care. I truly do not care people's opinions of me because I know who I am in God. I know that if I'm straying, I have family to be like, hey, get back in line.
go.
Yeah.
You know? So I lived my whole life with people's expectations. People, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? How are people going to perceive me? Are they going to think I'm friendly? Just imagine living with that in your head all the time. And then coming to this place where like, God's good and none of that matters. And people's expectations of me are not my problem. That's an expectation that they set for themselves.
Let's go.
That's so good.
And for those that are waiting to start that business, what do you say?
Just do it.
Just do
do
it.
Just do
Just
it.
do
If
it.
I could go back and, started this business, because my husband and I, the goal was to own a coffee shop. But with 3 kids, it's not going to happen anytime soon. If someone would have told me that this little idea was going to hit 6 figures, 7 months into business of not just revenue, but profit, I would have been like, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Wow.
Like our forecast for next year is double that.
Let's go.
Wow.
So just do
That's
it because you
awesome.
don't know.
You never know.
You might not get there, but you might. But you
I
won't
think
know
we're
unless you
living
do
in a
it.
time where this is the peak to step out,
Yeah.
especially in our economy right now. We all want it.
Yeah.
I think our society wants new businesses that are unique,
Yeah.
and I'm noticing that more and more that unique businesses, coffee shops, and all those things are really thriving right now.
Yeah.
Especially like
100%.
local
Clothing.
clothes and all that. Oh, dude,
So-
I will be your first.
Yeah.
I listen to Gary V.
Oh
a
yeah,
lot. I
Gary
don't know if you
V.
guys heard
Yeah.
Gary
I
fans.
love him.
I'm a
dude.
huge
Yeah.
Gary fan.
Yeah,
But
me
he's
too.
talking about this, saying how all of these things that are considered a small luxury are doing really well. Coffee shops are reporting, amazing sales.
Yeah.
Lipsticks have like their sales better than they've ever been. And the reason is because all we hear is the economy's not doing well. There's inflation. So how do we hold on to a little bit of luxury? You buy something that isn't that expensive. You go and buy a $5 cup of coffee. You go and buy a $7 tube of lipstick. And you hold on to a little bit of luxury.
Yeah.
And if Gary Vee said it, it's true.
Yeah, and and that's so true because that's what a lot of people are doing. Like that's how I buy.
Yeah.
I buy like a lot. Like people might look at the way I dress and stuff, but I don't buy expensive stuff. Like
Yeah.
even jewelry and stuff like that. Like I don't buy, and I buy from small businesses.
Yeah.
My clothing, a lot of stuff because I like to support it. I like how it looks,
Yeah.
and like you said, it's for me. It's that little bit of luxury to say,
yeah.
hey, I have something of value for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a person when I see traveling. One of the things I love traveling, the thing I've learned and I've cherished is I like to put another country business
hmm
in my life.
Cool. Yeah.
So I love local business. I appreciate local craft,
Yeah.
and I appreciate people's again like that's what I love about people who step out. I will always support that
Same.
because I know what it's
Same.
like to step out from your village
Yeah.
and you're like, I'm doing something outside of the norm.
Yeah.
I always want to be someone's yes. and not
Yes.
someone's no, because they're going to hear
Yeah.
no so many times.
Yeah.
So, and just like the season that I'm in and the age group, like network marketing, women, I'm like, I'll be your yes girl.
Yes, I'm a
I don't.
hundred.
I'm not even going to use
Yeah.
this, but I'm going to
Okay,
buy
that's
it.
funny
for
that you
you.
say that because
go.
I just got done teaching a class on Sunday. We have like a Sunday ministry school, and that was one of my things. Like, just go and do it.
Yeah.
Just if God puts something on your heart and you have this desire,
Yeah.
and if anybody tells you no, I promise you, come talk to me, and I will be
Yeah.
your lawyer.
Yes.
And I will protect you. If anybody says no, you cannot do it,
Yeah.
I will make sure you do it.
Yeah.
And I always want to be not just a cheerleader, but I want to be able to help you start up and go do it.
I always tell my husband, if being a professional hyper was a job, I'd be the person.
Yeah,
I will
let's
hype
go.
you up. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And Cynthia, thank you so much
No,
for
thank you
saying yes
guys.
to us, for saying yes to Aaron,
Yeah.
and for agreeing to be on here, man. I love this story, and I know it's going to resonate and so many people are going to relate to this. And your Instagram username.
In honor of motherhood.
In honor of motherhood. And we're
Yeah.
going to put all your links
Yeah.
and your different businesses right there in our YouTube bio. And once again, we just want to thank everyone. Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you
you,
to our
guys.
audience. for listening to us, for supporting us. Thank you for liking and for subscribing to our YouTube channel. We appreciate that so much. The feedback that we're getting through social media, through Instagram, and everything, all the love that we're receiving, and we want you to, if you're watching us, and regardless of where you're watching us, comment. Comment if you have an offbeat story as well. If you have a story to tell, comment that. And or even if you're in the local area right here in the IE and you say, man, I have an offbeat story and I want to share it, let's connect, let's network, message us. We're going to have all our social medias there, Cynthia's social medias on there as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Once again, this was Offbeat Podcast. Happy 2023. Let's go.